She thought her generosity would earn her respect, but it only made her a target. For years, Elisa watched as her sister-in-law took advantage, turning her home into a playground for chaos. But one cruel act crossed the line, forcing Elisa to choose, keep the peace, or finally fight back. What happened next left an entire family shaken, reputations shattered, and one woman forever changed. Would you let it slide, or would you stand up and finally reclaim your voice? Watch to hear the story nobody in their family will ever forget. They say generosity is its own reward. For a long time, I believed that. I believed being the nice one in the family would earn me love, respect, or at the very least, peace. But all it earned me was a destroyed pool, $23,000 in damage, and a hard lesson in boundaries. My name's Elisa. I married into a large, complicated family. My husband David is the youngest of 4 siblings, and unfortunately, the most conflict-avoidant person I've ever met. His middle sister, Cassidy, made sure to use that to her full advantage. Cassidy was the kind of person who could make a compliment feel like an insult and a favor feel like a demand. From the moment David and I bought our home, she treated it like an extension of her own backyard, especially once we installed a pool. To be clear, we never offered Cassidy the pool. Not at first. But the day we had our first little gathering, Cassidy showed up uninvited, kids in tow, in swimsuits, with floaties and juice boxes like she'd planned it herself. I didn't say anything. I just smiled and got extra towels. From that moment on, it was as if she thought our pool came with shared custody. Every summer, weekend after weekend, she brought her kids over. Sometimes she'd ask. More often, she wouldn't. Sometimes she'd show up while we were at work and text me a photo like it was funny, pool pirates strike again. She'd host parties there. Loud, chaotic ones. I'd find glitter in the grass, sticky popsicle sticks jammed in the filter, Band-Aids floating like dead jellyfish. Once, I came home to find a "Happy Birthday, Mason" banner hanging from my fence. I didn't even know who Mason was. Still, I kept my mouth shut. David said, "She's just high energy." He said, "Let's not make waves." His favorite phrase. And I didn't want to be the bitter one. I figured, let her have her fun. The kids were sweet. And hey, it's just a pool, right? But it never stopped. And she never said thank you. Not once. In 5 years. Then came the moment everything changed. Last spring, David and I were planning a rare camping weekend, just the two of us. We were excited. I asked around to borrow a good tent, and I remembered that Cassidy had one. A really nice one, actually, that I'd seen sitting untouched in her garage during a barbecue. So I sent her a polite little text. "Hey Cass, any chance we could borrow your tent for this weekend? Totally understand if not." Her response came back 3 minutes later, and it hit me like a slap. LOL. You guys are camping now? That's rich. Why don't you just buy your own? Or is money tight again? Sorry, I don't lend expensive things to people who can't replace them. I stared at the screen for a long time. My chest went tight. There was no emoji. No joking tone. Just cold, smug condescension from a woman who had used my property like a resort for years. I didn't respond. Not right away. I showed David, and for the first time in forever, even he looked angry. We ended up borrowing a tent from a friend of mine. I told myself I'd let it go. It was just a tent, after all. And people show you who they are. Cassidy had been showing me for years. But I didn't know what she was about to do. I didn't know she'd finally go too far. The camping trip turned out to be exactly what I needed. For the first time in months, David and I actually talked, like really talked. No phones, no work emails, no Cassidy. Just us and the quiet. We hiked, made s'mores, watched stars. But somewhere in the back of my mind, Cassidy's text nodded me. Not because of the tent, I'd long since let that go, but because it felt like something cracked open. Like a curtain pulled back and I finally saw her clearly. When we got home late Sunday night, I was exhausted, a little sunburned, and ready for a long shower. David went around unlocking doors while I hauled our stuff inside. Then he stepped back into the house with a strange look on his face. "Alisa, the pool looks off." I followed him outside. At first glance, everything looked normal. But then I got closer and the smell hit me like a swamp. The water was green. Not cloudy or slightly dirty. Green. What the hell? David walked over to the pump. Bent down. Came up slowly. "It's unplugged." He sounded confused, but I wasn't. Not really. My gut already knew. And that sick feeling only got worse when I saw the note. It was taped to the side door. A hot pink sticky note, flapping slightly in the breeze. Written in Cassidy's unmistakable cursive. "Oops. Hope the pool survives the weekend. Maybe next time, don't be such a fake friend." Smiling face with smiling eyes. No name. No explanation. Just that smirking little smiley face. I stood there in disbelief. This wasn't a joke. She'd done this. While we were gone, she'd come onto our property, trespassed, and deliberately sabotaged something she had no right to touch. And for what? Because I asked to borrow a tent? David kept rereading the note, trying to make sense of it. I just walked back into the house and called the pool guy. The next morning, the damage was confirmed. Our filtration system had burned out. With the pump unplugged, the circulation stopped completely, which meant our expensive pool heater overheated and failed too. The algae took over fast. Chemicals were off the charts. Total damage, $23,487. I didn't cry. Not even when the insurance adjuster gave us the estimate. I felt numb. Hollow. Not even shocked. Because the truth is, this wasn't just about a pool. Or a tent. This was years in the making. Years of being walked on, dismissed, treated like I didn't matter. That night, I sat on the back deck, staring at the murky water, and made a decision. No more playing nice. No more keeping the peace. If Cassidy wanted war, I was finally ready to fight. But I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't throw punches or post on Facebook like she did when she was upset. No, I was going to use facts, receipts, and consequences. And I had plenty of all three. The first thing I did was open my photo gallery. Cassidy loved to document her pool days. So did I, but for very different reasons. Over the years, I'd taken pictures of the parties, mostly to text David things like "guess who showed up again without asking," or "another glitter bomb in the pool filter." I never thought they'd serve a purpose. But that night, I started organizing them. I found over 60 photos across 5 years, her kids in the pool, balloons floating in the deep end, even one where Cassidy herself was holding a cake with a banner in the background that read "Madison's Pool Party," in bright bubble letters. The kicker? That party had happened while David and I were out of town. I dug into my texts next. Cassidy had texted me after that party. "Hope you don't mind, we were already halfway there, so figured why not?" Smiling face with smiling eyes. I didn't reply. She followed up with, "I cleaned up after, lol. Don't worry." I remembered that weekend. I came home to soaked towels stuffed in our laundry bin and a sticky patio table that smelled like Capri Suns. I'd gritted my teeth and cleaned it, telling myself it wasn't worth the drama. But now, I was done excusing everything. I pulled the security cam footage. We'd installed cameras after a local break-in, but I'd barely looked at them. And there it was, clear as day. Cassidy's SUV pulling into our driveway at 10:12 a.m. the Saturday we were away. She walked straight into the backyard and unplugged the pump. Her note wasn't even necessary. I had her on video. That's when I called our homeowner's insurance again. I explained everything, her note, the photos, the footage. They were surprisingly understanding. Apparently, vandalism by a known party is common in domestic disputes. They told me they'd pursue subrogation, they'd cover our repair costs, and then legally go after Cassidy for reimbursement. And they didn't stop there. A few days later, the adjuster called and said something I didn't expect. "Ma'am, I don't want to alarm you, but are you aware she was charging people to use your pool?" "What?" I asked, stunned. "She had public listings on mom groups and Facebook events," he explained. "Our investigator found advertisements for birthday parties at her sister's place with a heated pool. Prices, packages, even a waiver form." I was speechless. Cassidy had been running a business out of our backyard. A literal, unlicensed, untaxed operation on my property. And suddenly everything clicked. The random people I didn't recognize. The decorations. The hired clowns. She hadn't just been throwing family parties, she'd been profiting off us. Making hundreds per party. Maybe thousands. All while mocking me for asking to borrow a tent. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up drafting a timeline, uploading screenshots, compiling evidence. Cassidy might have thought she was untouchable, but she had no idea who she'd pushed too far. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about consequences. And for the first time, David didn't hesitate. He said 5 words I never thought I'd hear from him. "Let's take her down, Liz." For years, I tiptoed around Cassidy. I downplayed every slight, every invasion of privacy, just to keep the family peace. Now, I realized how much of myself I'd buried in the process. That night, as I compiled every text, photo, and video, I felt something shift. A line had been crossed, and I wasn't going back. David and I met with our insurance adjuster in person. I handed over everything: copies of the footage, the text with Cassidy admitting to the party, screenshots from Facebook of her party advertisements. The adjuster's eyes widened as she flipped through it all. "This is, honestly, the most thorough documentation I've ever seen," she said, shaking her head. "You did everything right." Within days, the insurance company initiated their claim. They'd be paying for the pool repairs, but would seek reimbursement directly from Cassidy. Meanwhile, they encouraged us to file a police report for trespassing and property damage, since her note and the footage left no doubt about intent. Filing that report was surreal. I wasn't sure what I expected, maybe skepticism, or for the officer to brush it off as family drama. Instead, the detective listened carefully, took copies of my evidence, and promised to follow up. Word got out quickly, as it always does in families like ours. Patricia, David's mother, called me the next morning. "What is all this? Cassidy says you're blowing things out of proportion. You know how she is. She didn't mean any harm." I didn't flinch. "She sabotaged our property, Mom. She cost us thousands. And she's been running an illegal business in our backyard. I can't look the other way anymore." For the first time, Patricia didn't have a comeback. She just sighed, defeated. The real surprise was David. He stood by me through every call, every awkward conversation. When the HOA got wind of the business running out of our yard, they called an emergency meeting. I presented my evidence, shaky but determined. Cassidy tried to talk her way out of it, but the facts were undeniable. Our lawyer, a calm, serious man recommended by a friend, took one look at our files and said, "You have an airtight case. She's liable for damages, possible back taxes, and civil penalties. And you have every right to ban her from your property, permanently." By then, Cassidy had gone silent. No more taunting texts. No more smirking emojis. I heard from mutual relatives that she was panicking, blaming me for ruining her life, but privately terrified about what the city and the IRS would do next. I wasn't cruel about it. I didn't gloat. When her youngest texted me to ask if he could still swim sometime, my heart ached for him. I told him yes, but not at our house anymore. For the first time in my life, I felt what it was like to command respect, quiet, steady, and impossible to ignore. And I was just getting started. The following weeks felt like living in the eye of a hurricane. On the surface, everything was strangely calm: no pool parties, no Cassidy. But beneath it all, the consequences were gathering speed. The city got involved almost immediately. It turns out, running an unlicensed business, especially one involving children, water, and money, brings down a whole different level of scrutiny. Code enforcement officers arrived with clipboards and questions. They wanted to know exactly how many parties had taken place, how many kids, whether food had been served, and if any permits were ever applied for. They hadn't. It only got worse from there. The IRS sent Cassidy a letter, cold and formal, requesting an audit. Our lawyers said it was inevitable, given the payments documented in the mom group ads and payment apps. She'd raked in thousands, untaxed. Now she was on the hook not just for damages, but for back taxes, penalties, and fines. The insurance company went after her aggressively. Their lawyers sent Cassidy a demand for reimbursement of the entire $23,487 in damages, plus administrative fees. Cassidy tried to play the victim, saying she was just helping family. But her own posts, flyers, and text invitations were damning. There were even PayPal and Venmo records, some labeled Madison's pool party, swim time, and birthday bash. Patricia tried to mediate, at first. She called David, asking if we could just let it go for family's sake. This time, David didn't hesitate. "No, Mom. Elisa's right. Cassidy went too far. She has to face the consequences." The silence on the family group chat was deafening. The final blow came from Uncle Stan, the family patriarch. He was the kind of man everyone listened to: retired judge, silver hair, serious but fair. He called a family meeting at his house, and everyone showed up, Cassidy included, face pinched and defensive. Stan listened to both sides, stone-faced. He let Cassidy ramble about forgiveness and family sticking together. Then he turned to me. "Elisa, I saw the evidence. You were more than generous. Cassidy, you took advantage, and you broke the law. There's no excuse for what you did. You owe your brother and Elisa an apology, and you'll pay back every cent." Cassidy burst into tears. Patricia finally went silent. I didn't feel triumphant. Just relieved. I felt the weight sliding off my shoulders. For the first time in years, the family saw me not as the pushover, but as a person worthy of respect and protection. After the meeting, I walked out into the evening air, David by my side. "I'm sorry it took me this long to stand up," he said, voice quiet. "It's okay," I told him, and for the first time in years, I meant it. Cassidy tried to fight back, but reality closed in fast. The insurance claim alone was more than she could manage, $23 for 87 plus court costs and legal fees. The city levied fines for operating an unlicensed business on residential property, and the IRS audit uncovered thousands in undeclared income. She was now facing more than $28,000 in liabilities, and the fallout didn't stop at her bank account. Rumors spread quickly in our social circle. Word got around at school, at the gym, at the local park where all the moms gathered. Suddenly, Cassidy's name was whispered with a mixture of pity and disgust. Her invitations dried up. People she once called friends stopped replying. The moms who'd paid her to host pool parties worried about their own involvement, and many quietly cut ties. Even her own mother, Patricia, began to pull away. For the first time, she didn't defend Cassidy. When Cassidy begged her for help, Patricia refused to pay a single dollar of the fines or damages. "You made this mess," I overheard her say during a tense phone call. "You clean it up." Cassidy called and texted, but not to apologize. Instead, she demanded I fix things, accused me of destroying the family, and warned that I'd regret turning everyone against her. I saved every message, but never replied. David changed our phone numbers after a particularly angry voicemail. The HOA sent a formal letter banning Cassidy from our neighborhood pool and common areas, citing her egregious abuse of community resources. She tried to argue, but the decision was final. There was one heartbreaking moment that almost made me waver. Cassidy's oldest daughter, Maddie, knocked on our door one Saturday morning, clutching her goggles. She looked so small, so lost. "Can I please just swim somewhere? I didn't do anything wrong." I took her for ice cream. I brought her to the city pool. I watched her laugh and play, and I realized something: this wasn't just about standing up for myself. It was about showing these kids what healthy boundaries look like. David and I found our peace again. The pool was restored, sparkling and blue, and the backyard was finally, blessedly quiet. We spent evenings there together, no more surprise parties, no more cleaning up after someone else's chaos. For the first time, I felt safe in my own home. I felt proud. The family dynamic had changed, and everyone could feel it. I had always been the pushover, the easy target. But not anymore. Cassidy's consequences were hers alone, and I was finally free from the weight of her entitlement. After everything, what lingered wasn't anger, it was relief. The months that followed were oddly peaceful. There were no more surprise knocks, no screaming children echoing off the pool's surface, no glitter in the filter or juice boxes on the lawn. It was just David and me, sitting under the string lights, rediscovering what quiet felt like. I banned Cassidy from our property for good. It wasn't a dramatic confrontation, just a calm, written statement, hand-delivered by our lawyer. She didn't respond, at least not to me. I heard, through family, that she called me every name she could think of. But no one listened to her rants anymore. People treated me differently now. Even Patricia, once Cassidy's loudest defender, shifted her tone. At the next family holiday, she actually thanked me for taking care of things. She never apologized for the years of dismissiveness, but her respect, her careful politeness, said more than words ever could. Cassidy faded from the family gatherings, her reputation beyond repair. She lost the trust of nearly everyone, her social circle evaporated, invitations disappeared. The city's fines and the IRS's audit left her struggling financially for the first time in her life. Uncle Stan called me one afternoon just to check in. "You did the right thing, Elisa," he said. "You taught this family something about consequences." But the part that changed me most wasn't what happened to Cassidy. It was what happened to me. For so long, I believed kindness meant letting people walk over me, that being good meant being silent. I know better now. I still saw Cassidy's kids sometimes. I'd meet them at the public pool, buy them ice cream, talk about school and swimming and everything but the chaos. I wanted them to know adults can draw lines without hate. That you can care about people and still protect yourself. David changed too. He stood taller. He spoke up not just for me, but for himself. We both realized we'd spent too many years sacrificing our happiness for other people's comfort. Now, when I look at our pool, I don't see 5 years of resentment and stress. I see a line drawn, a promise kept to myself. I don't regret what I did. I don't wish it had been easier. If anything, I'm grateful it was hard. Because I found my voice in the fallout. I found out what I'm really capable of. This isn't just a story about revenge, or even justice. It's about finally reclaiming my life, and learning that sometimes, the best thing you can do is let the consequences speak for themselves. I'm no longer the pushover. I'm the woman who commands respect. And I earned every bit of it.